to the Brook Hill Podcast, where we talk about life, legacy, and leadership. Today, my guests are EK, MK, and CR. Cole Robinson is Maddie Kate and Emma Kate. So we got the Kates,
Wow.
the Kates and the Coles today. Excited to talk about what we're going to talk about today. We're going to be talking about just how to walk through high school and college with friends maybe that views are different than you. You know, how do I deal with peer pressure? How do I deal with people whose lifestyle is different than mine? People who they have different values than I do, or maybe they are a Christ follower, but they have different values than what the Bible reads. And so how do I walk through that? What does that look like? Because most of the time at camp, what we hear from people is, you know, well, my friends are intimidating, or I don't really know how to share my faith, or how do I walk out my faith. And so we got three people here that is not a subject that they, you know, it's something that they have all walked through. So who wants to start a little bit with, you know, I don't know where to start with high school. Obviously, most of our audience is going to be junior high, high school, and college. So just let's give us some thoughts about what is some advice for someone leaving camp and I want to continue to follow the Lord around my friends. Because my friends didn't change, I did. Okay?
Right.
So what would you say to that?
I think there is responsibility for you to lead your friends when you go home, because they didn't go to camp and get filled up like you did.
Yeah.
And so I think going home, it's like your job as a leader, even though you're young. I mean, middle school, high school, you're still pretty young, so it can be intimidating. But I think what's really going to set you apart is to lead them spiritually. And don't, like, bash on them all the time. Like, that's not our heart with that.
Right.
Yeah.
But just, like, being there for them and loving them in a way that Jesus would, I think, is one of the ways that you can begin to, like, create a relationship with them. Because at the end of the day, like, that is going to be the best situation.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and like just making that decision and like staying firmly in that, because I know when I left camp, my graduate year, I had lots of friend issues and wasn't really sure what I was going to do, and just staying firm in that decision that I'm going to follow the Lord. And even if I do have to leave some friends behind because of that, I'm going to find the right friends that do, you know, follow him and make me feel good as I go home.
Yeah, that's really good, Maddie Kate.
Yeah, I think it's super big for you to understand what you're doing yourself and not focus on other people as much to start, especially if you're going to be trying to influence others. You have to understand what's important to you first. You have to take that upon yourself.
No, I think that's really good. And you know, I think there's such a balance. And the question is, how do we balance between, you know, because I never want to burn bridges. Right?
100%.
I mean, there may be a best friend that we used to spend every waking hour together, but maybe our values have changed, right? Like maybe my values are changing and theirs are changing, but they're still my friend.
Yeah,
I mean,
100%.
they're still, you know, they're still somebody I know. Maybe I don't spend as much time with them. You know, maybe I'm starting to find new groups that I spend more time with, right? But you know, I think it's important, if we're going to be a light, right? That we still have connections with that old.
100%.
I mean, we're still going to school with them, right?
Yeah.
You know, some of you guys are in fraternities, sororities. You know, I know, Cole, you and I have talked a lot about this. This has been something you've been very passionate about. Because, you know, you're in a fraternity and, you know, some guys may not have the same values that you do.
Right.
What is something that you walk that fine line? How do you try and do that and be an example?
Yeah, so I think it's fraternities everywhere, and you know, it's about finding the right group of men to surround yourself with. I mean, we talk about it every Wednesday. Find good guys to surround yourself with. I know I have a group of guys in my fraternity. I love them to death. And we do Bible studies, and we hang around each other. Those are my guys that I go to. And it's a culture thing. It's, you know, sometimes when the culture does one thing, you have to look at that and understand why you shouldn't be doing that. And you have to go find other people to do that. I think, especially when you're in college, and that entire college culture is about, you know, doing things you're not supposed to be doing because you're away from your parents or you're being independent.
Right.
Yeah.
It's about looking at God and asking yourself, is this what he would want for me as well? So, yeah.
I think there's a difference between compromising, right, and then being accommodating.
Right.
Right, because I think we want to be accommodating to other people.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, you know, how do we walk that line of living life with other people without compromising, right? I mean, I think that is what that looks like. So, what does that look like? What does that look like in high school, and then what does that look like, I know college, it can even change even more because you're really living around these people, right?
Yeah.
Versus high school, you were going home and you're kind of seeing them. I would say the difference between high school and college is you get to choose your friends in college
Yeah.
versus
Yeah.
high school.
100%.
Yeah.
It's kind of friends by like you can't help it. You're just
Yeah.
this is the school I go to.
Uh-huh.
Right.
I didn't choose to live here. I didn't choose to be in this community. You're just kind of in this community, right?
Right.
Uh-huh.
A lot of times you're following your parents to where
Yeah.
Yeah.
community that they're
For
in.
sure.
So let's talk about the difference between the two of those. Somebody start us off on that.
I think in high school for me, I went to a really small high school. I graduated with 86 people. So it was just people that I was around every day, all the time. And I loved them, but it was the same people. And then when I got to college, it was so different because it was so big. And the people around you that are making choices that you wouldn't necessarily make, it's their lifestyle at that point. And you have to make that decision that this is not what I'm going to do. But you're able to find those people that also are making that decision too. And I think that was so different and something I didn't expect in college is just there are people around there. Even in my sorority, I have so many people in my sorority, which actually has been such a blessing because I've been able to find that group of people that I can
Yes.
connect with and hang out with and that aren't making those choices that I wouldn't make.
Yeah, I would agree. I had a little bit of a different experience. I graduated with about 700.
Right.
But I think, you have your friends and you have the group of people you see every single day. And if those people aren't wanting to do aren't wanting to do what you think is right, it's hard for you to look at your friends and, be like, I don't think I can be doing this right now, or I don't think I can be here right now. And that's a hard thing to do, especially trying to fit in and trying to find your place in the world.
Yeah.
It's,
Absolutely.
when you're going off to the beaten path, it's isolating, and it's
Right.
it's not always the easiest thing to do.
Right.
So how did you navigate that?
It wasn't easy. Talk about burning bridges. I lost a lot of friends. I lost
Yeah.
in that high school to college sort of transition. I don't talk to a lot of the same guys I talked to in high school, which is okay.
Yeah.
It's not that we're not friends anymore, but it's like we just kind of move on and go our separate ways. And you make new friends, and being here, you're set in our culture and the Brook Hill culture, and that's a great way to make friends. My guys who are at Fayetteville, my red T-shirts who are in Fayetteville, we've hung out even before we were here this
That's
summer.
awesome.
And those are guys I love spending time with, and trying to find more guys that they know like that, bringing the guys I know like that, and then you're starting to build your own culture. You don't have to follow someone else.
Well, if friends are everything if you're in high school, right?
Yeah.
If you're in junior high, if you're in high school, I remember being 14, 15, and friends was such a difficult concept because you couldn't just get in a car
Right.
Right.
and go hang out with them. See,
For
for,
sure.
for us, we went and hung out at the mall. We were big
Oh.
mall people, right? We had these things called malls. Y'all don't even remember that, but we used to hang out Baybrook Mall in Pearland. That's where we hung out. But you'd have to get your parents to drop you off at the mall. Then they would get
Right.
dropped off at the mall. Then you would all hang out. But other than that, it was so difficult, right, outside of school to get together. And so, 14, 15 years old, you're kind of desperate, right?
Yeah.
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 You're like, no one wants to be my friend. I feel, did y'all ever have times where, you felt like you were alone? You felt like you didn't have friends like you wish you had?
I 100% did because I, like Maddie Kate, I went to a small private school and I only graduated with 26. So I only had 12
Yo.
girls in my grade.
Okay.
So we were all like super tight. And I remember like always being so discouraged because I was always like a spiritual leader for my friend group, but I wasn't getting actively poured into or supported. And I had to have so many conversations with like my friends where it was like, I love you and I want what's best for you, but like this is what I've decided that I want to do. And if you're not going to match that, then that's okay. You have different convictions than me, but like I'm just letting you know that I will not be joining you in doing that like all of high school. And that can be really lonely and really hard because it would be easier for me to be like, well, I can just bend this one thing that I'm convicted about just to hang out with the group. Like I want to be included and invited to stuff, so I'm going to compromise my integrity to connect with them. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons that you can learn, especially going to a small school, is that when I was faithful and stood my ground in like that small area, and when it was hard, it made it at college like so much easier and more more natural.
Yeah.
And you're going to attract the friends in college that you are like putting out. So if you're putting out that like you are a woman of God and that you love people well and you're kind and you're hardworking, then you're going to attract friends that also have those same values. So if you work really hard to refine who you are as a person in high school and get your like groundwork laid, then in college you're going to be blessed. Like the Lord's going to return that on you.
Yeah.
I think at some point you have to decide, here's who I am.
Right,
Mhm.
100%.
And I get it in junior high, or even early high school. That's almost way easier said than done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
At some point, you're going to have to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, EK, you're not having those conversations every day with people.
Oh, absolutely not.
Hey, I don't agree with you. So that's probably a very rare moment.
Very rare.
But it's a moment that it's a moment that you had to
Yes.
have.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
But it's not something that you're doing on the daily.
No, not on the
I
daily.
just don't want-
Absolutely
I
not.
don't want people to think that that's what you're doing on the.
Yeah, actually, guys, I just go at it every day. Just kidding.
That's right. That's right. So similar experiences for you guys.
Yeah, I think at my high school, I kind of got to a point, especially in middle school, where I was like, there's no other options. Like there's no one that's following the same lifestyle as me. I don't know what
Right.
to do. I want to switch schools, all of that stuff. But when I got to college, I was able to find such a good group of friends. And I think that was because I just was so faithful to the Lord during that time, even when it was so hard, because there were definitely times where it was so hard, where everybody else, it feels like, is out doing things and that like you don't know what else to do. But
Right.
when I got to college and going to a big school really helped that. But just having those friends that are making the same choices as me is really, really awesome.
How long? Doesn't it feel like forever though when you're in high school?
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
Yeah.
Like if
Yes.
you're alone, okay, my life's I'm never gonna you get
Yeah.
extreme. I'm
Mhm.
never gonna have any
Right.
friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm never gonna have anybody that believes the same as me. And I think that's where we just go, well then, you know what, I gotta have somebody.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so then we compromise.
Yeah.
Mhm.
100%.
I think it's important that we bring people to us instead of going to them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe here's someone that doesn't have such the higher standard. Okay, but I'm going to bring them to youth group, or I'm going to bring
Right.
them around
Yes,
this group of
100%.
friends.
Yes.
And that's a way that we can be a light, because we don't want to be bridge burners, we want to be
Yes,
bridge builders,
100%.
but we want to
Yeah.
get them to our side of the bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Maybe talk a little bit about that.
I think when you're trying to have someone come to your side, and you're trying to maybe stop or have them stop something they're doing, I think it's very important that you're not condemning their every action that you're not
Right.
agreeing
Yeah.
with.
100%.
Because the more you put someone
a
down,
balance.
is they're not going to get back up.
Right.
It's you want to build them up and you want to encourage them, and you don't want to be one of those people who's judgmental. That's something Jesus says we
Right.
cannot be as judgmental.
100%.
And I think if you are, that's only putting people off from your side of the bridge. That's
Yeah.
turning people away. And I think, I'm not perfect. I feel like we've all made bad decisions. We've all,
Yeah.
done something against our morals, but I don't ever want to be the person that someone sees and is like, I can't be friends with them. They're too judgmental, and I don't want to be around them if I do something wrong. That's never the kind of person I wanted to be. And I feel like so many people today want to be judgmental. They want to make sure that people are doing their things, and I just think people should be encouraging. They should be trying to
Yeah.
get them in. They shouldn't be pushing them in.
Yeah, like how do we draw people versus repel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jesus drew people.
Right.
Obviously, when he would speak the truth, people would be repelled by the truth, but they weren't
Right.
repelled by him. Right? They were
Right.
they were you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's just it's so good. It's such a fine line there of how do we do that. But I think it's more on us than it's on them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
You
Yes.
know,
Yeah.
and I think it's this loneliness concept, right? It's
Yeah.
this concept of I'm never gonna have any friends. I'm
Right. Yeah.
never gonna get past this. And it's just in high school we see moments as forever, and it's just not.
Yeah.
Right.
You're 15. You're not that far from being 16.
Right.
Right.
And getting a car. And then once you get that, you're able to be mobile and your groups open up. Then you're 18 and you're off to college or in the workforce or whatever, but your world opens up even more from there. So it's like, how can I get through? How did y'all get through some of those moments where you didn't feel like you had any friends?
I think for me, like, like you're talking about, it just feels like so like forever, and you're like so lonely, and you're like, this is never going to change. I'm stuck in this cycle of losing friends, getting friends. Like, it's exhausting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, especially when you're so young, like you're more immature, and like it's harder to see the bigger picture. So I think something that really helped me is like reaching out to like mentors and like getting poured into, getting connected in your church, like people to give you perspective and give you guidance through that. And it just like really helped shape my mind and like grow me as a person. So like anyone, like I'm discipling this girl right now, and like talking to her, she's like, I feel so lonely. I'm at my school. I'm like, I have no community that's like spirit filled. And like that's a really lonely place to be. And like exactly how I felt. And I know like a lot of people that are listening feel too, because it is lonely as a Christian.
It is. I think it's important to, especially from where I was, to be okay with being alone for a little bit.
Yeah.
To be able to self-reflect. I think as a person, if you don't have that alone time, if you don't have that isolation a little bit to reflect and to sit in whatever's going on in your life, you might just be too busy to even think about it.
Right.
You
Yeah.
have to be able to sit and look at the past, look at where you are now, and then look to the future and say, okay, what's going on? What can I do? Because if you always have people around you, people trying to influence you, you'll never have that
Right.
peace of mind. You'll never have that clearness.
I think
Yeah.
that's really, really good, Cole. Like, I think people put such a negative view on loneliness sometimes, when in reality, when you're alone with the Lord is where you can grow a lot.
Yeah, I think what I did was I just kind of realized, like, this is just a season in my life. I'm going to stick it out and I'm going to get through the next season. And then finding that community, maybe not in my school, but like at my church. I know I had a big Brook Hill community too, where we would have Bible studies, even if it was online on Zoom, but having people pour into me that weren't necessarily at my school too.
It's amazing.
I think it's good. You know, okay, let's talk about this. What about sometimes when you find yourself in a place where you have to be there, okay? So, like, you're on a team,
Mm-hmm.
all right? So, did any of y'all play sports or anything? What'd you play?
I shot trap in high school.
There you go. You're on a trap team. I mean, you're on a team. There's people on your team. What'd you do?
I cheered.
Cheered. Woo, let's go.
played-
Were you a competitive cheerleader?
No, just school cheer.
In JCT meeting, they talk
Yeah, it's
about there's
true.
competitive cheer, and then there's you, okay? So, yeah, that's good. All right, EK.
I played volleyball, and then I played tennis my senior year.
Okay.
And then I played bowling.
You played bowling.
Yeah, I was on the bowling team.
You bowled.
I bowled. I was a bowler.
Bowl. What's your high score?
Like 220.
Ooh.
Not great.
That's-
Not great.
Have you ever had a bowling where you hit all the pins?
Yes.
You did?
A strike.
No, I'm talking about an entire game.
No, that would be no. I haven't.
Okay.
I'm not an expert.
This last year,
I only did 1 year of bowling. We were
Right.
called the Holy Rollers. It was iconic.
you would be.
It was a great
That
time.
does sound like a small Christian school. Right there.
Conway Christian.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Is she Conway Christian?
I am
Christian.
Conway
So
Christian.
you're the Wampus Cats.
I'm a Wampus Cat.
And she's
How we got
what are those Conway Christian?
We're the Eagles.
Eagles. Wampus Cats is such a Christian
Talons
school.
up.
I love it. I love it. So yeah, no, I got 247 this last year
Wow.
and did not miss a pin. So
Wow.
Looks
And
like I,
I
need
never-
to bowl with you,
and
Mr.
I was
Dave.
never on a bowling team.
Well, you know.
Self-taught. Me and Tyler. Tyler, what's your high score? 270. What? What?
Did a regional tournament too,
272.
That's crazy.
Did you knock all the pins down?
except for like the 10th frame. I didn't get the last strike.
Which is crazy that you got a 272, I got a 247, and I didn't miss a pin. But it's where you hit the pins.
One
Yeah.
last pin, so
Yeah.
11 points.
Okay. Yeah. This is 11.
I regret
11
saying
points.
I was on the
Anyway.
bowling team now.
Okay, sorry, we start talking bowling here. No, but when you're on a team, you're around people that you can't choose. I mean, you got to be
Yeah.
around them,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's a good thing. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
it's a good thing to be around people. So, how do you walk in that and not be judgmental, but not compromise, right? So you see this balance
Yeah.
of what we're talking about, you know, because there's going to be conversations that you're going to be right there. Right. And so how do you have that balance? Because I think ultimately we want to be an example for
Yeah.
others.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so how do you do that on being on teams? Because I know a lot of people listening are going to be on some sort of a team.
I think, you know, something we do at Brook Hill, we redirect a little bit. We try to maybe steer the conversation away from maybe the nitty-gritty of what's going on, the whatever rated R, PG-13 or wherever you're at. You kind of try to steer it away just a little bit from that. And if it still prevails, just kind of maybe talk about a cleaner side of the subject and not necessarily whatever bad is happening. I think you know, sometimes you can't help it, and I think listening, especially if it's not too bad, but listening to what someone has to say and maybe hearing them out and listening to them. And if it is bad, I think it's something to be like, hey, bro, maybe that's not something we should talk about. You know, maybe there's younger people, maybe there's other people there who shouldn't hear that sort of thing, and encouraging them to not do that, not discouraging or putting them down, but encouraging again.
I think for me, it was hard for me not to judge because that's such an easy thing to do, but realizing like I'm in the minority here. I did not go to a Christian school, and everyone around me isn't getting the same church community or like the family at home that are believers. So trying to lead that, but then also there comes a point where sometimes it's hard to do that, and you have to spend time with your team, but also outside of that, where are you getting poured into and filled up? Because sometimes it's just like impossible to try to lead that whenever everyone around you isn't a believer. So outside of the team, where are your other friends and where are you getting poured into?
Yeah, because you're gonna work jobs where
Right.
people aren't believers,
Yeah.
and you're not there to be the moral compass
Right.
of those who don't. I don't follow Jesus. Like
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
have. You know, I think it's our job to make Christianity attractive, right?
Yeah.
Right.
For us to, you know, not like holier than thou or whatever,
Mhm.
but
100%.
am I am I a hard worker, right?
Right.
Am I good to be around, right?
Yeah.
You know, if I'm the laziest person on the cheer squad, right? then what makes me a Christ follower
Right.
stand out,
Right.
right? If I'm the lazy one, if I'm the one cheating, right?
Yeah.
If I'm the one, you know, not doing the optional workouts, right? What kind of an example is that for Christ, right?
100%.
You know, because surely on the bowling team, EK,
Right.
you were
I was putting in those reps.
putting in those reps,
Let me tell you.
right? You were getting that 20-pound ball,
I
not that 8-pound pink ball
Yeah.
at the
Right.
right?
No sparkles on my bowling ball.
Okay.
Yeah.
But does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like,
Totally.
you know, like if you're at a job, if you're a barista at 7 Brew, which is my brew, is 7 Brew, you know, and you're going to have other baristas there at 7 Brew, you know, you're not going to go around saying, don't say that, don't do that, because they're not a
Right.
Christ follower, right? And so how do you, you know, you got to navigate walking in that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I think like for me, just like in general, but especially in sports, like you were saying, Mr. Dave, I think that like displaying characteristics of God is ministry.
Yeah.
Like even
There
if
you
you're
go.
not shoving it down their throat of
Right.
like, you should love Jesus, you should do this, don't do this, don't do
Right.
this. That's not really loving them.
It's not
Yeah.
attractive.
Yeah,
No.
that's you being prideful and pushing your convictions on other people, which
Yeah.
is not what Jesus did. I mean, we see like with Zacchaeus, like he told him to come down from the tree, I'm going to your house. Like everyone hated him. He was a tax collector, the worst of the worst. And God chose to love him.
Right.
And I think that is what we are called to do. Like as leaders on a team, you're called to be intentional and love people, because chances are if you're their only Christian friend, you're the only one that's loving them the way that they deserve to be loved, or like
Yeah.
are wanting to be loved. And so I think displaying like those characteristics of hard work, intentionality, encouragement, like slow to anger is so rare in a competitive atmosphere.
Yeah.
Like if you're that one person that is not like getting hot-headed during a game and having a lot of perspective and controlling the environment and setting the culture for your team, you're going to stand out whether you love Jesus or not. Like that's just different and like against the grain. So I think that like as Christians in high school, especially, like your vision should be more, I'm going to show you Jesus more than I'm going to tell you about Jesus.
Right.
Like showing them the characteristics of God.
And I'm going to go old on you, Tim Tebow.
Oh yeah,
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't. Is that
Yeah.
is that
Yeah.
old?
he spoke at my church.
Okay, so
That's
Tebow,
awesome.
Tebow, you know, goes from this homeschool lifestyle to playing football at the Florida Gator national championship team. So you're talking about a culture shock for him.
Right. 100%.
And he was just himself.
Yeah.
You know, he was the hardest working dude in the locker room.
Yeah.
Yeah, he may not have been cussing like everybody else, but he was right there with everybody,
yes.
patting them on the back, laughing at them. You
Yeah.
know, just but he had. I felt like in the last 10 years, and I don't know, maybe it's been longer since he's played. Maybe it's 12 years or what, 14. I don't know. I'm gonna sound really old, but I just remember him being such an example that didn't compromise, but yet his team voted him team captain.
Yeah.
His team loved him.
Yeah.
And I guess that's my question is, how do we get to that point where we can be so on fire for Christ
Right.
to be, because I think Christians withdraw so much
Mm-hmm.
that we're not being a light.
Yeah.
If we're leaving every room, how do we influence the room?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's now, and I think this kind of goes to my next point is I think it's individual. I think you got to know yourself.
Yeah.
You got to know what you can handle,
Mhm.
because I think there's some people maybe that are young in the Lord that they might need to withdraw. You know, you
Yeah.
talked about Cole for a season to be alone, or maybe I don't know. You may have said for a season to be alone is good,
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
right? But it should be so we get stronger,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so we can then go out,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because Jesus didn't tell his disciples, shrink back from every room
Mm-hmm.
Right.
so that you can be more Christ-like.
Mm-hmm.
He said, go out,
Yeah.
Right.
right? So kind of break that down. What are you thinking when I say that? Does that challenge your thinking a little bit?
I think it's a hard thing for people to do. When things are uncomfortable,
Mm-hmm.
as humans, we want to leave. We want to get
That's
out
the
of
easier thing is
yeah,
to
it's-
quit.
Right,
take
yeah.
the easy
Mhm.
route. I think as a Christian, we're called to challenge ourselves and be better than we were yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the things, especially I've been around a lot of non-Christian people. All the jobs I've had, a lot of the people I've worked with were non-Christians, and they say they just they don't want it shoved down their throat, and I totally get that.
Yeah.
I totally get that, and I feel like to be a light is to be able to stand alone, but influence everyone else. Like you
Yeah.
were saying, it's about doing the right thing when no one's watching. It's about working the hardest. It's about being the guy, being the girl, and not saying no, you can't do this, you shouldn't do this. It's
Yeah.
you're influencing other people by being yourself. You can stay there. You don't have to leave. Don't take the easy route because you won't grow. If there's not problems, you won't grow. And growing as a Christian, everyone will see it. Everyone will see it. And it's kind of cool. I love watching people grow.
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts there from that? Is that good?
Yeah, that
was
was
really
really
good.
good. I think, yeah, like what Cole said, I mean, just it's hard sometimes because there are temptations whenever you do step into that environment where that's maybe not something that you would choose to do, but just, standing firm in what you believe and through your actions, I think is the best way that other people will see you and like what you believe in rather than just like don't do that, but just what you're doing, being the standout person in a room and doing things differently and then how everybody else would do them.
Yeah, I know for me, I was the guy in high school that everybody knew David doesn't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, but
Yeah.
but David would go hang out with these
Yes,
guys,
Right,
and
100%.
I would go. I was on the team with them, and so
Yeah.
they would have a team function, and I would always go and hang out. I remember people, underage offering me alcohol, and I remember my friends refusing it for me. They were like, "No,
Right.
no, Dave doesn't do that,"
Yeah.
and it's like. Yeah. I mean, no thanks. I mean, but it wasn't even a temptation or consideration for me. And I think that goes back to you got to know yourself. You got to know
Yeah.
your limitations. You got to know the environments that you can go into and be a light, and the environments that you can't go into and be a
Right.
light.
100%.
And so you can't just well, I'm weak in this area, but I'm trying to be a light, and so we justify us
Yeah.
going into areas that we can't handle, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And so talking about this kind of a subject with friends and being a light and doing that, it's not this cut and dry thing. So I think it's very difficult to discuss, right?
Yeah.
And it's a maturity issue. It's a knowing where you are in the Lord.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so did any of you guys find yourself having to navigate that concept of, okay, I don't know if I should be there, or no, I can go there and be a light. I mean, I'm sure you deal with that in your fraternity.
Yeah, I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. I'm not gonna sit here and tell everyone that I've been perfect the whole time. I think it's about going back and realizing what mistakes you have made and growing from them, and then setting a boundary with brand new people. You go into a scene, you're a freshman in college, you're a first year, and you're a freshman in high school. You're moving to a new school, whatever. It's making that first boundary with the people you meet. Like, hey, I don't do this.
Yeah.
I can't do this either anymore. I don't do it now. I don't do it at all, and I will never do it. And then people will try to pressure you. And it sometimes peer pressure is not what they tell you it looks like. It's, well, are you sure? It like, really, it's pretty cool. Like, you don't have to, but like, are you sure? And it's more a concern feeling than you really should try this. Like, it's very good. Try it, please. I feel like
Yeah.
it's marketed to us as at a young age as peer pressure is almost bullying, and a lot of times it's people trying to be friendly, really coming and
Yeah,
trying
just
to be
trying to
friendly.
be nice.
Yeah.
But I think it's that boundary that you have to set. It's no, I'm not going to do this. I will not do that. And a lot of people, I've found that if you set boundaries, especially with people who want to be pushy, if you set that boundary and you're like, no, dude, I won't do that. It starts to be respectful. It's like, hey, man,
Yeah.
I get it. And I think especially with guys, I'm not so sure about girls and
Right.
sororities. but
Makes sense.
I think especially with guys, when that respect factor comes in and y'all are bros despite your differences, that's where that connection and that, you being a light and shining on them, that's where that really starts.
And I think that's what we got to learn to do. We got to
Yeah.
learn to be
Yeah.
friends with people, or at least have connections with people
Right.
yeah,
that believe different than us.
absolutely.
That's how we get out there, and I feel in our world today, we're all going to these separate corners and these separate echo chambers,
Yeah.
right? And sometimes it's just like, hey, no thanks, that's not my thing.
Right.
And it can be, sometimes it has to be strong, and sometimes it can be chill, but you're just setting those boundaries, and it's consistency over time that people respect,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
right? Because if you compromise one day and then don't the other day, people get very confused, and you look like a
Yeah.
hypocrite.
Yeah.
And that I think that's where people are giving Christ followers a bad name.
Yeah.
So
I think you kind of have to look at culture too. Like a lot of people, especially in college, if they grew up not in a Christian home, they may have been taught that like offering you a drink is like a way of being nice,
Yeah.
like being friendly. And like that's where they go to connect is like functions.
Yeah.
So I think that like our heart as Christians, if we're wanting to connect with them, now obviously if you can't like be there and be mature, then don't. But like going there and just talking with them and connecting with them is a great way to reach people in an area that is so dark sometimes, being the light there. But I just think that like that's something I've had to learn in college. Like me and my roommate this year like wrote down a list of like our non-negotiables and like shared them with each other to hold each other accountable. So if we go in an area that's hard for us, we'll just go together, and then you have like a point person to where it's like doesn't have to be awkward, but like if you start to feel like you're wanting to compromise, then they'll be like, hey, remember we said like we're not going to do that. But like that doesn't bother me, and it's not hateful to me because I already made that with her that I didn't want to do that, and I'd voiced that. So I think that's like a logistical thing that really helps like helps in life, and like has been cool this year to like really refining me as like a person and like keeping your integrity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some of that stuff doesn't have to be like substances, like could be gossip. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk badly and talk down about other people, and I've set that standard for myself this year, and so I'm going to surround myself with people that know that so that they can hold me accountable for that, like even if everyone else does.
Yeah, I think setting those boundaries for yourself, but also with your friends too. One thing that we did was me and my roommate, we don't like going out, we don't like going to parties, but we want to hang out with our friends. So we would go while they got ready, sit with them, hang out with them, talk to them, and then they would
love
go
that.
out and we would stay and go back to sleep and go to bed. But we were able, to talk to them and have fun with our friends, but not have to go in those areas that we don't want to go to.
I also think it's really cool, and there's like a beauty in having friends that aren't believers because you learn more about their mind and their
Yeah.
perspective,
Yeah.
and it makes you better whenever you're ministering to people. Like if I just hung out with Maddie Kate, like Maddie Kate's awesome and I adore her, but like we have the same brain. We have the same vision because
Yeah.
we both love Jesus.
Right.
But if I'm hanging out with someone that maybe doesn't have that same vision, I'm learning. You always need to be in a mindset. I'm learning about new people. I'm learning about different personalities. And now I'm going to be a better Christ follower because one, I know how to treat them in a way that they're going to like how they want to be treated. And two, like I'm also learning how to minister to them in a way that's not offensive and Christ loving.
Yeah.
you use the word minister, and obviously I grew up in the church, so when I
Right.
think of ministry, I think of being in church preaching to somebody.
Okay,
Right?
Yeah.
right.
And so I think if we break down what does it mean to minister to somebody, I mean, does that look like I love them? I'm an example around. Like, what does
Yeah.
that look like, right?
I think you look at Jesus' life.
Okay.
His
Yeah.
entire life was ministry.
Yeah.
Anything that Jesus might have done in his life, that'd be
purposeful.
loving people, feeding people who are hungry, just
Yeah.
giving people a purpose. That's if you can do any of those things that Jesus would have done in his lifetime, that's ministry. That's what I feel like is ministry.
I like that.
I
How-
think.
go ahead.
Sorry. I just think any act like against your flesh is ministry. Like I tell my girls every Thursday night, like even if you're smiling to a girl in the hallway, like that could be ministry for you because you're showing them kindness and the love of Jesus that is so different from our world, and like that may be the only Jesus that they get is like your smile in the hallway.
Yeah.
Yeah, like loving others like the Lord loves us, even in like the small moments, like EK said, just doing that every single day is what I do.
No, I think that's so good. And you know, it can just be how you live your life.
Mhm.
sometimes,
100%.
Right? It just can be, you know, you're at a job and people are like, whoa, you're not gossiping like
Right.
everybody
Right,
else
yeah.
is
Yeah.
gossip, which I think that's a great one for you to point out because, you know, today we would rather complain, gossip,
Yeah.
Mhm.
right? Our
Mhm.
words, like there's no word filter,
Yeah.
right? It's just
Right.
Mhm.
vomiting at the
Yeah.
mouth.
Mhm.
And I think to not do that would be a huge ministry. People be
Right.
like,
Right.
whoa, you're always positive. You know,
Yeah.
Mhm.
you're always seeing the positive in these things.
Mhm.
Right.
You know, and you could be like, oh, it's just who I am. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, sure, it'd be easy. But, yeah, and I think you can, you know, over time as you create relationships with people are going to be like, whoa, I want what you have.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's the key. I think Jesus walked in a way that people wanted what he had.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
He had, what did he have? He had healing.
Mm-hmm.
He had forgiveness.
Yeah.
He had love. Right. He had peace.
Yeah.
Right. You see all, and I loved how you said that, Cole, because I think that's the way to frame it.
Mhm.
And so as you're on your team, do you walk like Jesus walked in
Right.
in that way? You know, I don't imagine that Jesus was a lazy carpenter.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
Absolutely
Right.
not.
I imagine that he didn't, you know, cut steps, right? I
Right.
imagine that he wanted to build the whatever he built, the table. I can't think of anything else. The shelf. I don't know what he was building. He wasn't building an iPhone. You know,
True.
but,
True.
but you just get the feeling that he built it the right way.
Yeah.
You know, but the bottom line is what we're talking about today is friends, and you know the Bible has some things to talk about friends. You know, 1 Corinthians 15:33, do not be misled. Bad company does corrupt good character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know, and so Ecclesiastes 4:9, two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. I don't talk about friends, but I love Ecclesiastes 4:10. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up, but pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up.
Yeah.
You know, so if we're walking around burning bridges, we're not going to have, you know, any help there. I love Proverbs 16:28. A perverse person stirs up conflict. A gossip separates close friends.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you could just go on and on. You just Google
Yeah.
the Bible and friends. And it has a lot of great things to say about friends. And I think the older that we get, the better that we can get at this concept. And I think
100%.
our encouragement today is just as you are younger, don't get so in your head about friends,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you know, because I think we get desperate for community. Something we talked
Yeah.
about earlier this summer is community. Does community create our cause, right? Our
Right.
lifestyle, our purpose, our beliefs, or does our cause create our community? Does our beliefs create our community? I think at a young age, our community creates our beliefs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. And so we have to learn to hang in there,
Yeah.
right? And not make these big compromising decisions that we look back on and we're so mad at ourselves. We're like, that's not who I am. That's not who I wanted to be. But I got
Right.
so desperate over needing friends. I mean,
Yeah.
did you guys ever feel that or ever see that? You ever get yourself and you're like, oh, I so wanted a community that I compromised in that situation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel like in high school, especially that high school to college transition, you'll see so many kids, I mean, just going crazy. I know it's hard. And I can totally understand why, you know, your parents aren't there. You know, you have probably a little bit of senior money in your pocket trying to spend it. And, you know, maybe you get a job for the first time. You're still in high school. You're just trying to spend your money. And you see everyone else. You see movies and TV shows and media. They all kind of glorify maybe like the party scene in college. And so
Right.
it's everyone wants to go out and they want to party. Everyone wants to go out and, you know, whether it be alcohol or substance, it's like people want to go do the things they're not supposed to do. And I know a lot of people, especially in high school and in college, who have gotten away from that, and they say that getting away from it was better. Getting away from it is way more fun, and having you don't need any substances to have a good time. I love it here because there's none of that.
Right.
Having the best summer of my life, the best friends I've ever had in my life, not a drop to be found. And I think it's so pure when you don't have to have anything else, and it's just people who love God having a good time together. And I think that's the most important part of that transition is finding good people to do it together.
Yeah, the high school to college transition was really hard. It was hard for me because I had this huge group of friends that we did everything together for years, and then we all split up and we all went to different colleges. And then I came to this college where I had people I kind of knew, but none of my best friends. And I started to get desperate, and I wanted those friends like I had in high school. And I had to realize like those were friendships that were years and years and years like built up. We knew everything about each other. And I'm coming to this school where I don't really know a ton of people. So this is going to take time. These friendships, we have to build these relationships, and slowly but surely, even though I don't have a huge friend group like I did in high school, I have those 2, 3, 4 friends that are really good, and we have really, really good, meaningful relationships, and we're checking in on each other like I've never had before. People that text me and check in on me and make sure I'm okay and are constantly there for me, come in our room. And that's something that's been so cool, is even though it's not this huge friend group, it's just those 1 or 2 people that are there for me all the time, and I know that they will always be there for me.
Yeah, one good friend is always better than 10 mid friends.
Yeah.
If you have one person who really, really loves you, I mean, I would choose that 100 times over 100 over 10 guys who just really don't care and call you
Right.
friend.
One cool thing about the transition from like high school to college or even middle school to high school, like just any transition in life, you have an opportunity to make yourself who you want to be.
Yeah.
Like coming to college, like Maddie Kate was saying, I also like came to college with no one that I knew. So I had to make all new friends. So you have a decision to make, and honestly a responsibility as a Christian to decide, who am I going to choose to be my friend? What am I going to choose to participate in? How am I going to grow in that? And I think that sometimes because it's easier to make like friends with people that maybe aren't making the decisions that you are wanting to, just because it's going to be a fast friend or fast connection. And I think really waiting it out, and yes, being friends with those people and loving them hard, but waiting for the friends that are going to challenge you and grow you is worth it 100%. And that's like would be my encouragement to like everyone listening.
Yeah, I think when you're desperate, the lie looks good.
Yeah.
You know, like
It
you
does.
were talking about these I don't know, movies or whatever, or social media. You see all these people post this highlight of the night,
Yeah.
right? And they don't post the parts that weren't fun. They only post the parts that are fun. So you're trying to recreate that. And when you're desperate, the lie looks good. But sometimes you have to walk through that lie to get to the other side and go, okay, that wasn't it.
Yeah.
Right? And so then how do you find friends? Because I think when you're younger, you're looking for friends that are exactly like you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're looking for people who are on the team that you're on,
Yeah.
right? So I couldn't be friends with somebody that's not into sports because I'm into
Right,
sports, or
right.
I couldn't be friends with somebody that's into and we have such surface. I think when the younger we are, the more surfacey we choose people.
Yes.
I think the older we get, the more substance reasons that we choose people, right? I know for me, a lot of the friends that I have, had we met in junior high or high school, we would not have been friends.
Yeah.
Because we were just so stinking immature.
Yeah.
But what I was drawn to was their characteristics,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Their character traits. And so I think early on we make outside judgments, and I think as we get older we make inside judgments.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like, okay, you're not going the direction I'm going.
Right.
And so it's like I don't find you interesting anymore. Yeah,
Right.
maybe you were the quarterback of the junior high or high school team. I
Right.
don't really care right now. We can't play football anymore.
Yeah.
We're too old.
Right.
Right? And so there's other things that matter to me. You're lazy as all get out. I can't be around you. All you do
Yeah.
is complain about the place you work at. You're not talking about making it better. I can't be
Yeah.
around you.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how you choose friends. That may be our last subject that we hit.
I think choosing friends, especially where I've come from, choosing friends based on your spirit and your values is super important. And I think, be open to being friends with a ton of people. I think
Yeah.
that's super important. Later on, it's okay, maybe I should distance myself.
Yeah.
Maybe I should retreat just a little bit. This isn't going where I thought it was going. Or, hey, maybe I should hit this a little bit harder. Maybe I should go more deep into this friendship and be a bro to him. be a gal. I don't know.
Sister.
Sister.
I don't know.
That's crazy.
But find people that you want to be friends with, and you can be as open as you can, and then from there you have a whole group of people. So why shouldn't one of them fit those Christian values that you have? Why shouldn't one of those, be one of your best friends? And try to be best friends with all of them. Sometimes things don't work out, and that's okay. But you got to look. You can't just wait for one to fall in your lap.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, like what Cole said about meeting as many people as possible, whatever transition you're going through. I know when I went to college, just meeting as many people as I could in that first week, 2-week month. We went through Rush, so meeting a ton of people through that. And then from there, refining that who has the same morals as me. And, you can kind of pick based on then who is like actively reaching out to, because a huge thing for me is I, put a lot into other people, but I also want that same put back into me. So the people that are also coming back and asking to hang out, that's something that's super huge for me. And then see, how they, as you get closer with them, how are they actually living their life? Are they putting on a front for you or for other people? And that's what I did in college, was really, meet a bunch of people, and then from there step back and saw who I really wanted to choose to spend my time with.
I think one thing for me was like, I really prayed for friends, honestly, which is like kind of generic, but like praying for friends.
You went to a Christian school.
Yeah.
It's so obvious. I prayed for my friends. No, I love it. No, you're so right, though. It's so good.
Like praying for a godly community, and like from a leadership standpoint, because like I always am wanting to grow and like develop myself as not only a Christian, but a leader.
Yeah.
I was praying for friends that had qualities that I was missing.
Yeah.
Praying for people that were going to challenge me. Like I struggle, if I'm being very vulnerable, I struggle a lot with pride. And so having friends that were extremely humble to like help me process things, because you're going to process your life with your best friends. If you're having something going on in your life, you're going to process that with them. So like having friends that maybe have qualities that you don't have to give you more perspective is going to grow you so much. And like we all believe that the Lord uses people to like pour into you.
Yeah.
And so I think that's like why choosing friends is so important, because it's like who or what is pouring into you.
Right.
It's your decision to choose that wisely.
It's so good. Do you think it's helpful to have conversations like this? Like if y'all were in junior high and high school, would it be helpful
Yeah.
to listen
Yeah.
to your counselor sit around and talk? I wish we had the podcast.
Yeah,
for
for
that.
real. We got robbed.
Y'all would have been listeners.
We would.
Y'all would have been listeners. So, no, I think it's good. Any closing thoughts that y'all have? Any encouragements? I love that we said, if you're lonely right now, don't compromise, right?
Yeah.
Don't compromise. But at the same time, you got to put yourself out there. Go to youth group. But if you're sitting at home all the time, I think
Yeah.
something, I don't remember who said it on the podcast, one we were recording, they just talked about we live in a generation now that just sits at home on their phone.
Yeah.
You're not going to find friends on your phone.
It's so true.
That that might could be a closing thought of, if you're sitting in your room praying for friends and not going to youth group or not getting
Right,
involved in
yeah.
extracurricular activities or not doing that, then phone friends are not real friends.
Right.
So true.
Right.
I mean, I don't care if you're FaceTiming. I don't care.
Yeah.
There's something about being in the same room. That's why for the podcast, I don't do this Zoom thing.
Right,
I
yeah.
think there's something about us being around the table talking.
True.
Yeah.
So do y'all see people kind of reclusing to trying to be a phone friend or Snapchat? Then people get brave and say dumb things like do y'all see
Yeah.
anything like that in y'all's generation?
That's a huge part of our culture.
Mhm.
I feel
Okay.
like, especially now, after COVID and everything, people get to work from home, get to go to school from the comfort of their living room. It's people want to be reclusive. People don't want to go out because it's easier to stay home. You don't have to drive. You don't have to you spend less money, which I mean, parts of it are a good thing. Obviously, if you're sick and you feel like you can work, but you don't feel like you should, you could work from home, and that's great. But
Yeah.
people are abusing things so much, and now it's a sense of entitlement for people. No, I should be able to go to school from my bed. And I saw that a lot in college, and it was very hard for me. I wanted to stay in. I wanted to not leave my dorm because it's so much easier to not do it. And I had to force myself out and okay, I'm going to go golf. I'm going to go to work. I have to go to work. I have to go do all of this stuff. Because, I just sit there doing my homework for hours at a time. It's no, I have to go out and do something more. I can't just sit here and rot in my bed.
And
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead, Monica.
It's so easy to do too. I think, you sit there and you complain like, why don't I have friends? You know, why isn't the Lord giving me these friends? And then you're just sitting there. You're not putting yourself in those places where you can find those friendships. And that's something I did a lot my first semester is I was like, why am I not having these friendships like everyone else is having, but I'm just sitting in my room. Like I'm not doing anything actively trying to find those friendships.
I think that the reason that a lot of people don't know how to be a good friend is because we're doing it so much over the phone.
Yeah.
Like we're losing that connection, developing how to connect with people and love people like face to face. Because like you see like friendships from like our parents' friendships so solid, and like you always think as a kid like, why can't I have a friend like my mom? Like she's just like so solid, and like all of her friends are so tight. And I think it's because like we have had a culture change, and like I just challenge kind of everyone listening, like get off your phone and get outside and connect with people, because that's going to challenge them, and then it's like a chain reaction, and we can kind of go more to like how it used to be with like human interaction, because like that is how people grow, is like getting out of their comfort zone.
I think these are some great takeaways, right? These are some great takeaways from what we talked about today of, hey, if you're lonely, don't, just compromise so much because you're so desperate.
Yeah.
You need to pray for friends.
Yeah.
But if you're only praying and not putting yourself out there, but you can't just jump out there and do what everybody's doing. I mean, there's so many things I think that we talked about here, and your phone is not a substitute for friends, and people just don't have the people skills today because they're not getting out there.
Yeah.
And I would always encourage people to be on some sort of a team. I think teams today mean so much different than they did before. But team today is you're learning people skills. You're learning how to get along with people you don't agree with. People frustrate you. People make you mad, and so such good stuff that we talked about today. I hope this is helpful for anyone who might be in junior high, high school, or college.
Right.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I love it. I thank y'all for being on the pod.
Of course. Thanks for asking.
All right. It was the Brook Hill Podcast, Life, Legacy, and Leadership. Thank y'all.